Yeah, I know. But we haven't done one in a month. Okay, here we go. Three, two, one.
On this episode of the John 1911 podcast, back from construction, the Biden lie, NFA crazy, and Navy stories.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. This is episode 341 of the John 1911 podcast. We have not done a podcast since June 10th of 2024. And I'm sure many of you are wondering if we too will be dropping out of the 2024 presidential race because apparently we've done a Joe Biden. So, but we're back. We're here. We got our vitamin B shot that the president gets. So we are, we're going to be trying to get the podcast back on a more regular schedule. So I will explain some of that. So what's going on, you stranger?
Oh, not a whole lot. Just watching the Missouri River flood out behind the house here still.
It's flooding down there in Krakenville.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the whole river bottom's underwater.
Oh boy. So is that heading? I know we're getting a bunch of heat hitting us tomorrow from the hurricane. I guess
Yeah.
that the hurricane caused the push heat from the south to come north. So am
Yep.
I now expecting more storms coming from you, coming out from Nebraska?
I don't know if they'll get there or not. They might peter out, but we're supposed to be nice and good and hot all week, so it'll be humid as hell. And then we get storms the next week again, just what we need. So I'm kind of
Yeah.
over it. I'm ready for fall and winter.
Oh, I'm not. I mean, I haven't enjoyed any of this weather. I've been too busy doing, this construction around here. So let me
I'm ready to
explain to
get.
every. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, let me explain kind of what's been going on. Many of you, most of you, or really at this point, all of you know that something is up. Um, you know, the project that was only supposed to take like 4 months, we're now in 2 month, I don't know, whatever. So it's now July. Is it today, July 6th, or is it the 7th? It's the 7th, July 7th. So I'm in. So we're 9 months now, probably of this project, but things kind of got real busy around here because once all the big construction stops, and it's not all done, but we kind of have to start moving into these facilities. And so it's just taken so much time. Um, I'm actually sitting at the John 1911 range right now, recording this, hardwired on fiber optic. I've got over 900 megabits down. I've got over 900 megabits up. We have a septic system with a toilet and a shower and sinks. We have HVAC. We've got what else is there running out here? Oh, we have the ability to even have some food and stuff out here as of yesterday or late last night, and we're going to try to do more podcasts, at least the hub wise podcasting more frequently here from the range because we have better internet out here and get back on schedule. So, we're this is not going to be like a formal episode. I mean, it is, but we're just kind of catching up with everybody, seeing what's going on. How's everybody been? We have a podcast. I don't know if we still do or not. It's been a month, but that's kind of, been a lot going on. I don't know what's going on with Joe Biden. I don't know what's going on with Facebook messing with our page. I don't know what's going on with the custom 1911 world. I don't know what's going on with uh, um, new shot timers that are out. I don't know what's going on with Wilson having a new X9 gun that we don't have. And what else is there? Oh, and apparently SIG is now selling the NGSW, what do they call it? Does they call that the M5 or the M6? What do they call that now? That gun, the new Army service rifle.
Uh,
Is it the M6
Not
now?
sure on that one. I'd have to
Because
check.
it was going to be M4. Because the other previous is M4. So then ideally this one would be M5. Then Colt came out with an M5 and got a trademark on it, and so then the Army decided to make the NGSW the M6. I believe that's the last I heard, or maybe it's the M7. maybe the what was the M6? Maybe, but anyway, whatever that gun is, the 277 Fury 6.8 by 51. Apparently, Sig is releasing a batch of those to the public, not just like a onesies twosies that a few people can get. Like we saw one that was for sale earlier this year, and wasn't that. They used to be like 8 grand, and then I think I saw some for. There was a local dealer that had one, and it was in 308, and it was he wanted, is it maybe six or was it five? I'm thinking it was 4,000, but that might be too cheap. I don't know what these are selling for, but we're gonna have to get one eventually. So that's why I keep an eye out on them. So, but yeah, just all kinds of stuff going on. So, what you want to talk about? You want to talk about politics? You want to talk about guns? You want to talk about reloading? You want to, hit me with it.
I,
Teach me how to do a
I'm
podcast.
about shit full of politics.
Hmm.
There's so many
Well,
different angles on it going on right now. It's just I'm almost in a. There's so many theories on what's going to happen. It's just let it play out and see what's going to happen. But
I think that,
Biden did everything but shit himself at the debate,
yeah.
and depending
Apparently, he
on who
has
you,
shit himself in public. Um, you
well,
know,
anybody that's had a toddler recognizes a couple of those freeze up poses in the middle of a step.
uh-oh. I predicted 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, and I'm not gloating, but it's just like this is not like we have to have a real like I don't want to. We're not going to go deep into politics. We're just going to make this point. You know, Donald Trump was the 45th president. Joe Biden is the 46th president. Statistically and actuarially speaking, the chances that Kamala Harris would be the 47th president were always very high. And as the gets closer and closer and closer um, to the inevitable problems that we're having with Joe Biden, the chances that Kamala Harris will be the next president are sky high. Now, what happens is when I say that is Donald Trump people get all like, but it's like, wait a minute, I didn't say she was going to be the 47th president forever. She could be the 47th president for 3 months or for 30 days, but it's probably coming. But what is not a good sign? This is nobody's talking about this. Like there's a lot of things I'm surprised that people are saying since the debate, which I didn't actually watch. I've seen highlights, obviously. Is Kamala Harris? If this guy is as bad as we all thought he was, like it didn't. Kamala Harris didn't know it. Kamala Harris didn't watch the debate and go, "Holy fuck, what's wrong with Joe Biden?" You know, anyone that watched right wing media didn't look at the debate and go, "Holy fuck, what's wrong with Joe Biden?" But it's so, so all the people in the cabinet, all the staffers in the West Wing, I mean, hell, all the staffers working in the East Wing with with the First Lady's office. Um, how Kamala Harris has let this go on this long and hasn't started having the conversations about meeting with the members of the cabinet. Let's all talk about the 25th. Let's, maybe quietly going around to members of the cabinet and being like unofficial, like, hey, Bob, I thought I'd stop in and talk to you. Like, if I were to have to call a vote at a meeting to invoke the 25th, where would you come down on it? And start taking a vote count on the cabinet members. That's how that works. Is it's invoked and then they have to vote on it, and then the president is, if I recall, is removed, but then that president has 30 days to like write a letter or somehow make some kind of appeal to Congress if they contest it. But it's like how strong can Kamala be? How dysfunctional does that White House have to be that nobody's done anything up to this point? You know what I
Well,
mean?
it kind of makes you wonder who's actually calling the shots, because obviously Joe Biden is not calling the shots.
I don't remember if I said this on pod or not, but I remember it was during Easter and Easter Sunday, and the White House issued a tweet or a statement, something about we recognize, I don't know what, something like, I don't know if it was like World Trans Day or Trans Day of Visibility or some
Yeah.
horseshit made up kind of thing. And again, if you're listening to this and you're trans, I'm glad. I have no problem with that really. But when I saw that, well, I mean, Joe Biden entered federal government service in 1972, I think it is. I mean, he's an old style politician. And, imagine a politician from the 70s or the 80s or even the 90s on Easter, the high holy day of Christendom, coming out and saying this is the trans day of visibility or whatever it was. When I saw that, I said to myself, Joe Biden's not in charge.
Yep.
There's no way. That's a nihilistic 26-year-old little socialist communist douchebag that's in that West Wing that either did the Jedi mind trick on Joe Biden, like, hey, this is the post you need to make, Joe. Yes, this is the post I need to make. Or they're just flat out doing whatever they want. And it's becoming more and more clear. Kamala Harris seems to be very weak, which isn't a surprise. It also is probably not going to start looking real good for Joe Biden. I think there's going to come a point when Jill Biden, her name is going to be so disparaged as to be like Anthony Fauci,
Hmm.
because it's obvious that Jill Biden minimum has a major hand in this. And at what point does Jill Biden go from being a protective wife and first lady, again, she's the second wife, to being some kind of grifter gold digger that is basically sticking her hand up this puppet's ass because she doesn't want to leave the White House? You know what I mean? Like, that
Yep.
story hasn't quite caught on yet, but I've noticed. Tell me if you've noticed this, Kraken. Since the debate, like, is it just me, or like every day, like twice a day, every day now, every mainstream media outlet is doing a story on all the shit that's wrong with Joe Biden? Is that your observation?
Yeah, they're finally catching up with, what a lot of us have been saying for a long time. Uh, One of the best ways I heard it put was from Jason Chaffetz here, oh, I don't know, a week or so ago, when he said Joe Biden was never going to step aside because Jill Biden likes being president too much.
Oh shit. So the narrative that I just described has already started taking hold.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting because,
And the timing of her being on the Vogue cover is not doing her any good in that argument, even with the liberal media.
what yeah, I know she like did a Vogue cover, like she got a Vogue cover, and like Melania, like the borderline supermodel, didn't get a Vogue cover from Anna Wintour, which was kind of weird. What does that have to
Well,
do with?
no, she's on her third one. They just released one with her on the cover. I don't know, 3, 4 days after the debate.
What?
Talk. Oh yeah, talk about horrible timing. Yeah, cover of Vogue. So her third one, and I don't know. They were making some big deal about some, $15,000, dress or pantsuit or whatever she's in, and how she's more concerned with being on the cover of Vogue than she is looking out for her husband's best interests in his obviously diminishing capacity. That's more of the Fox spin. but the liberal media is starting to run with that too, just not as hard headed about it.
Wow.
So they're really shitting the bed over Joe staying in. The problem is it gets real sticky because all the money they've raised goes to Joe and Kamala. So he's basically got to volunteer to step aside, or if there's a hostile takeover at the convention, if there's a contested convention, really the only person they could try and put in would be Kamala because of federal campaign regulations. They would lose the entire war chest if they try and stick somebody else in there besides Kamala. So they're kind of
Yes.
caught between a rock and a hard place. Joe says
Well,
he's not going to step aside. There's got to be discussion over invoking the 25th Amendment. Anybody who thinks that at least some of the cabinet members, or at least somebody, hasn't brought it up, even if in a half-joking fashion, to test the waters, is pretty naive at this point. That's got to be part of the conversation somewhere in the circles of power.
yeah, and also I had heard that. I mean, I knew that the campaign money was going to be an issue. And you know, the other thing is I don't. And again, I've had my head so far up my own ass dealing with the armory stuff around here that I haven't really caught a lot of this, but I know that there's deadlines as far as switching out candidates on ballots. And you would
Mm-hmm.
think that wouldn't be the case because they haven't gone to the convention yet. But some of this doesn't make any sense. And, especially because the Democrats, what they've done is they've, they've changed the rules so much to make sure that Biden, they did it in 2020 to make sure Biden was the nominee, that now some of those things I think might be biting them in the ass a little bit.
Right.
The other thing is, how do I
Well,
say
they're
this?
they're running in they're running into ballot deadline issues because there are some states that actually start mail-in voting in September. So
Which
by
is
their state
correct.
laws, there's a certain amount of time you have to be qualified and on the ballot
And you know
before
what?
the first day of legal voting.
This mail-in voting is bullshit too. This mass mail-in voting is bullshit.
Oh yeah.
If like during the election, because we have this all the time, like Doc almost always goes on a hunting trip in November. And so he goes down to the county election commission and he fills out whatever the ballot is, like is it a provisional ballot or early, and he does it at the election office.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't mail shit to his house. They're not, so you can stuff all this stuff. He has to go down there and show who he is and make the effort. So, that if you're somebody who can't vote on election day, that's your remedy. Um, and I know that there's some issues too between trying to replace him at a contested convention versus, I think it might be he has to either die or be 25th Amendment revoked or invoked to have his presidency revoked before he can even qualify to even have names changed on some of these ballots. And
Mm-hmm.
I actually thought, and this is I don't subscribe to this as a conspiracy theory because I don't think they're planning this, but I predicted, I just get a chance to say it on pod. I thought a few weeks ago that the fact that Joe Biden is not going to be on the ballot for whatever reason. And so, like, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, it's Gavin Newsom. It can't be, but let's just say it is. Well, what that's going to create is a lot of drama. Like, well, you have to write in Gavin Newsom's name if you want your vote to count. And so then, if that's true, that opens up a lot of friction that's potentially people will just vote Joe Biden and their shit's not going to count. So they will use that as a crisis to now start doing all of the same shit that they did during COVID. We have to make sure that we don't disenfranchise all these voters, and we have to give them all these different ways to vote so they can clearly tell us that they're voting for Gavin and not for Joe.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably coming, or whether it's if Kamala's on the ticket, if Kamala's top of the ticket, that's going to be a little bit harder pill to swallow. I don't remember how do they, and this is interesting too, because here's some of the problems. It's like, okay, this idea that Kamala can't be president is insane. It's insane. Okay, and because at 3 o'clock in the morning, if the Secret Service runs into the residence, kicks the bed and says, "Mr. President, get up. Missiles are in the air. We're evacuating the White House." Joe Biden would be like, corn pop? Or at least if you kick the bed, if you kick Kamala's bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, she's at least going to be cognizant enough to know, okay, let's get to the fucking airplane. Let's
Mm-hmm.
get out of here. She can be president. This idea that people are like, she can't be president. It's like, the fuck, she can. I could be president. Y'all need to stop. Joe Biden right now being president is extremely dangerous. Joe Biden being president is probably more dangerous to the world than combat between Western powers and Russia and Ukraine. I firmly believe that. Like, I think it's highly dangerous. But here's the thing: it's like, okay, we may be so behind the curve of what's going on in the White House because it's like, well, a bunch of people want Gavin, and it's like, okay, because they love him. He's so dreamy and all that. But it's like, well, Kamala was going to be like, wait a minute. I mean, I'm the vice president. What am I? Chopped liver? And it's, so I'm going to go and be his vice presidential candidate. It's like, no, that's not going to fucking happen. And so then it's like, all right, well, if Kamala's going to be president, if she's going to be president to finish out Joe's term, means she runs everything and she's running the campaign. Doesn't she, as the candidate, get to ultimately decide who her vice presidential nominee is going to be? She picks, and if she's like, I don't want fucking Gavin Newsom. Like, what if she's like, I want Marky from John 1911? I mean, I'm not that I would take that, but it's like, you know what I mean? Like, doesn't she get to choose? And it's like, you can see there's probably, like the media, like, the none of us that saw the highlights from the debate were surprised that Joe Biden is non compos mentis. But for some reason, the media is pretending like, oh my God, Joe Biden, he's not competent. It's like, bullshit, you assholes. If you
Yeah.
had seen Donald Trump shuffling to the helicopter the same way with all the people blocking him so you can't see how fucked up he is, just the one video shot of that would have been enough for you guys to be screaming to high heaven about Donald Trump. So I don't believe this whole fake narrative that, like, all of a sudden everyone's like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. It's like, shut up. Yeah, you do. I think this is way farther along, or probably the arguments are way farther along than what we're thinking. Like, I have my suspicions. We won't know until all the books are written. But
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be some hellacious books written about this president. It's going to be crazy. There's going to be someone's going to come out of that White House that worked in like the communications office, or worked in like the White House photographer, or a protocol person who's going to write my time in the Biden White House, and it's going to be fucking crazy.
Yep.
And yeah, and it's like, the media's all been lying about it for 3 years. Like,
Yep.
what's Biden's chief of staff? What's that? Is that Ron Klain? Is he still there?
Ron
Did he
Klain.
leave
Yep.
or did
He's
he
still
leave to
there.
go run the campaign?
No, I believe he's still chief of staff.
Let me look it up real quick. let's see here. Did he? Because I thought um, Ron Klain. Where is he at now? No, he's former. He
So
because
he's running
Ron
the
Klain.
campaign then.
He did leave. Let me see here. He White House Chief of Staff. He left February 7th, 2023, and he was succeeded by Jeff Zients. Well, here's the thing. Ron Klain's a
Hmm.
pretty powerful dude, and
Yeah.
if Ron Klain isn't in the White House, then who's running Joe Biden? Is it Jeff Zients? I never heard of Jeff Zients. That doesn't mean he's not important, but
Well,
that
he's
looks more
important
like.
enough. We should have heard of him.
Like I'm sure most people have, but I mean, like in
I
DC,
haven't.
but it's like, well, that means maybe it is Jill Biden, and it's like I don't know, like it's a huge mess, and what I don't like is I don't like this made up narrative that like everyone is so surprised, like I can't, this is a crisis. It's like, dude, this was a crisis 2 years ago. Did you hear the latest about the there's rumors that they've got visitor records. Apparently, a Parkinson's expert visited Biden's medical staff, medical group at the White House for like 7 hours sometime in the past couple of weeks.
That would not surprise me a bit.
And it's like, yeah. And I know Tucker Carlson's been going around for years saying that he had heard in like 2019 that Biden had been diagnosed with dementia by at least 2019, but probably earlier.
Yeah.
And it's like everybody, the same media that, you know, is now shocked that Joe Biden is non compos mentis is the same media that let him lick ice cream cones and hide in his basement, during the first campaign. It's like they knew. They all knew anything they can to stop Trump. So I think right now they're just kind of scrambling to cover their ass so they don't look like they've been lying the whole time. And maybe it's they've decided. I feel like that they've decided that. I feel like the left wing media has decided that Biden's got to go.
Yeah.
I feel like they've made a decision. Kamala apparently can't make the decision. Apparently Joe Biden can't make the decision. Apparently Ron Klain's successor can't make the decision. Apparently it's the New York Times and Joe Scarborough that are decided now in July that Joe Biden's got to go. I mean, like
That
I mean,
that and the big money. When the big money
well,
donors start making noise, they're gonna have to start listening. Because Trump's out raising them right now, money wise.
there
And
were
if
a
you
bunch
lose
of
the
big.
big donors and they all get together and say Joe's got to go, if he isn't going to step aside, my money's on 25th Amendment. They can't run him against Trump, and he's dug in, or his family's dug in. I mean, Hunter's got a lot at stake. Uh,
Oh, there's
for
they're
to get Joe to resign.
all of those Bidens live off Joe Biden. His
Yeah,
brother, I think his sister, maybe not so much his sister. I know his brother and his son, his surviving son, and Jill. They all make a ton of money. Oh, there's a daughter that makes money off of him.
yeah.
Um, I mean,
But Hunter's got the tax cases hanging over his head too, so he needs Dad to stick around in the White House at least long enough to pardon him from the tax cases. So I'm sure he's encouraging him to
God,
to stay running.
God, I hadn't
Uh,
even thought about that.
yeah,
I
because
mean,
if he resigns, if he says, I'm out tomorrow, Kamala gets anointed, and obviously, there's history between the Bidens and Kamala, and she says, "Nah, fuck Hunter Biden," you know. Can't pardon him and then play the convicted Trump felony game. So she lets him dangle. Hunter's got the very possibility of prison time hanging over his head if Dad kicks off or resigns from the presidency or gets 25th amendmented out of there.
well, how can Kamala run for president? And how can Joe Biden not run for president and still remain president?
Well, he would have to pull an LBJ and say, I will not, well,
I
he
mean,
can't
no.
really say the I will not seek, but he can say, I will not accept the party's nomination.
Oh, I'm not talking about the rules. I'm talking about the optics. How is it? I mean, every day they're going to be asking Vice President Kamala Harris, "Why are you running for president? If and why can't you be president now if this fucker can't run for president?"
Well,
Like
he actually,
that would be the question I ask her every day.
I actually heard a good conversation on this the other day, and it would be right out of the LBJ playbook because the revisionist history anyway says LBJ wouldn't, did he use I will not seek nor will I accept speech with the idea that he was trying to get Vietnam wound down. And if he was campaigning for president, he was not going to devote all the time necessary to getting out of Vietnam. And that's why he wasn't going to seek reelection so he could get everybody brought home.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me that Hunter
No,
Biden is Joe
no,
Biden's
stick
Viet? No,
with
no,
me.
wait. Well, no, wait. Are you telling me that Hunter Biden is Joe Biden's Vietnam? That's what
Nope,
it sounds
no,
like.
no. What I'm telling you is Joe Biden could say the same thing and say, I want to get the war in Israel taken care of, and I want to get the war in Ukraine taken care of. And if I'm running for election, I cannot focus on bringing peace to the world. So I'm not going to seek reelection in order to try and resolve these wars.
Well, the problem with
And
that would work.
that gives him some face that nobody will believe it, but it gives
It,
him at least official face saving outs.
well, yeah, but politically that won't fly, but the media would go with it.
And that's all it takes.
Yeah.
Because he's going to
There
croak in a year or two anyway. So, all he wants is to get out clean. And if you make a backdoor deal with Kamala to pardon the golden child, no matter what happens, there you go.
Hunter Biden is Joe Biden's Vietnam.
It gives them a
That's
way out.
yeah, but I
It
don't
gives them a way out with the media.
maybe but how but the guy can't even talk, and more and more is coming out, and it's like how can he not be mentally competent to run for president but still be functioning as president?
Oh, I
And
get it. I
that eh,
totally
yeah,
understand the argument
but that's gonna like I don't know why would Kamala even agree to that?
because she wants to be in the big chair.
Well, but she also doesn't want to be set up to be destroyed either.
But it's but if she gets to sit in the big chair, no matter what, she becomes the first black woman president.
Well, she can be
Win, lose or
well,
draw, she becomes the
right
first
now,
black woman president.
statistically speaking, the chances that Kamala is going to be the first black woman or first woman president is going to be either the 25th Amendment or you know
But
like
the 25th Amendment gets sticky. So if they
what
can convince Joe to take the deal and hand it over voluntarily, it's not as politically messy come election time.
the only job that a vice president is really required to do is to attend funerals. And the most important funeral is the president's funeral. And
Mm-hmm.
that's always been a very cynical take on the vice president, but it's true. And so vice presidents are given as much power as their president will give them. Like Dick Cheney had a lot of power
Mm-hmm.
because George Bush gave it to him. I think it's pretty safe to say that Bill Clinton didn't give old Al Gore shit. Um,
Yeah.
and
Just inventing the internet.
and you know and um Obama did they didn't like they didn't give Biden any fucking thing. I don't know, we'll see. I mean, it's going to be interesting. It is and it's not. Kamala's going to be the 45th 47th president.
One way or another.
One way or the other, she'd be the 47th president. She might only be president for a week, but she's going to be the 47th president. So
Not betting
um
against it.
no. So do you know that shot timer, the SG shot timer that I have that, it has all the fancy options and does all that stuff?
Mhm.
You remember that timer? I think we talked because you were asked. Someone was asking about timers, and
I
then
I did, yeah.
SG came out with a new timer that was less featured but had a louder speaker because one of the big complaints with the original SG shot timer is it wasn't loud enough to run classes. Like so you could, like a pack timer, you can have people on the line beep, and you can, the whole line can hear the
Yeah.
timer. SG released a small timer that didn't have as many features but has a louder speaker, and I was like, I'm not buying that. They just announced, I guess it was this week, they've got a new version of my timer with a louder speaker.
Oh, there you
And
go.
I haven't seen the price. It's probably like $300. And, you know, I will say that the speaker on our SG shot timer is it's it's quiet enough that I'm not happy with it. And I wish it was louder. But if I put fresh batteries in my hearing protection, and I'm like keep it close, it's like it's fine.
Yeah.
But if there's a lot of gunfire going on, I can miss that time. I could be slow to jump that timer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I'm really trying to get the time. So yeah, I don't
And for the
know. Like
kind of
it.
money they get for those, that shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah. I mean, so. Um. So what's going on with some of you? Because I mean, in the past month, did you SBR?
We're
You
going
got
down the
SBR.
tax stamp road, aren't we?
You've gone NFA crazy, dude.
That's your
I
fault.
mean, everything. It is my fault. So yeah.
When I
Um.
was out there in January, I told you I wasn't going to get into that game because I didn't want to fool around with waiting on tax stamps. And it wasn't a month later, and you're like, dude, they're coming back in like 2 weeks, a month. I'm, shit.
Yeah, you're like flip. Yeah, your tax stamps now. You flip them like a coupon book. I mean, you've got so many of them.
I've only got three in 6 weeks,
In 6 weeks. I mean,
maybe
he's like this.
seven.
This dude goes. This dude goes. I'll get this text message. Hey, what do you think about these whatever flow through whatever can things? And I'll go. Well, I've not really heard of that one, but not that I'm an expert on this kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, there's this and there's that, and this is my uneducated guess where to go. 2 days later, hey, I just bought one of those, and I think I'll get my stamp back in 24 hours. And like 24 hours later, bam, you got another tax stamp, and it's like, phew, we're in the middle of so much transition around here. I literally can't get any NFA items right now,
Yeah.
which kind of irritates me because now everybody can get all these NFA items. And, the last NFA item I waited for was like 18 months.
So individuals are coming back. According to Silencer Shop, the average wait time after certification is like 4 days, 5 days, but it runs the gamut, from 1 day to like 165. But they're averaging 4, 5, 6 days now.
Well, see,
I did
I
an
heard,
SBR.
yeah, I heard that the stamps were like if you were already in process and like so you've been waiting 6 months, like let's say like I don't know, it was like in February of this year in 2024, like all of a sudden it got real fast. If
Mhm.
you filed for a stamp after February of 2024, you're getting these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 day return times. But people that are still waiting in 6, 8, 9 or year, those are stuck in the old system, and those are
Mhm.
still taking a crazy amount of time. I don't know of anyone. I have not heard of any single person applying for and buying an NFA item in launching that process in 2024 that's taken longer, I think, than 7 days.
Yeah.
What I've heard. I'm sure there's people that have, but I don't think there's anybody. I mean, like, I don't know what would be forever if you're getting a tax stamp in 4 days. What would be it? Oh, my tax stamp took forever. What is that? 2 weeks? It's
Well,
like
for people
okay,
new to the game, they would be like 2 weeks. But for guys that are still under the old system, they're like like you said, 18 months, 2 years. Uh,
I remember. Well, that's not 2 years. I mean, it used to be like 10 months and 12 months, and depending on what it was, you might get the 14, 16, or 18. But most people were getting them about 12 months.
yeah,
11 and 14 months. But I remember like talking to these cops, and they're like, "Yeah, I was getting NFA items. My first NFA item, I got it in like '95, and I waited 22 days because there were so few of them. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Yeah. So
So trusts are still on the old system, so they're just taking forever. So
yeah, I don't
uh,
even understand what the advantage of a trust is anymore. Like, I don't even know why you'd even have a trust.
I actually asked my attorney this, and what he told me was, let's say I want a can, but I also want my 25-year-old son, if he wants to borrow it, to come over and go deer hunting with it or go shooting. Putting it in a trust, either one of us can take off and possess it at any given time. Uh, there's not really an advantage to succession in the event I would pass away. It's mostly just if he
Well,
wants
wait a
to
minute.
take it on a
If
trip.
if it's in a trust and you as a member of the trust cease to be a member of the trust is still alive and he gets to keep the
Well,
suppressor,
yeah,
right?
yeah, but then I can turn around and will it to him if he wasn't in the trust. And I think it's a $5 transfer fee, and he still has to jump through all the hoops, fingerprinting, all the paperwork, but he doesn't have to buy the new stamp again.
I
So
do
that's
know,
really what it saves.
like around here, it used to be everybody wanted to do trusts. And one of the issues with the trust was you didn't have to have the local Cleos sign off on the shit. Um, and it might be that you could even like have all these people in the trust, but the ATF changed the rules. So maybe the Cleos don't have to sign it, but every member of the trust has to do the fingerprints and photographs,
Yeah, they
just
do.
like an individual. And it didn't
Yep.
used to be like that, if I recall correctly, if I'm remembering. So I don't really understand why, you know, like
So
why
I've got
people
a
would
buddy
even
of
do
mine that put a
trusts.
can in a trust. So, and I asked him, I said, well, why'd you do that? And he said, well, if Jonathan wants to come over and grab the can and go shoot, I don't have to be with him. He's still waiting on, we put ours in on my first one within about a week of each other. Actually, he was a little ahead of me. He's still waiting on approval for his because it's in a trust. And when I talked to my attorney, he's like, really the only advantage to the trust now is whoever all's in the trust can possess the item. So, like if my
Yeah.
son's not in a trust and he wants to go shoot, I have to go with him. If he's
Yeah,
on the
well,
trust, he can just come over, get the can, and he can keep it forever if he
the
wants.
to make it simpler, the trust is actually the controlling entity, and
Hmm.
individuals are just members. Like it's
Yeah.
not your suppressor; it belongs to the trust. If certain members are no longer part of the trust, or they've deceased, the trust is still, as an entity, still exists.
Hmm.
I wonder if the trust would cause issues for some people with the IRS and their taxes, though, because
I
that
I
as
don't know
as that
about that.
as
Yeah.
yeah, as the entity. So anyway, we were talking about the. So what did you SBR?
Well, I picked up one of those PSA PX9 pistol caliber carbines. I've had one
Mm-hmm.
before, and I ran the dog piss out of it without any problems, and then I got a bug up my ass and traded it off. Well, PSA had a special on them, so I bought a lower, and then SBR'd it, and then got the pistol upper in a 10.5, and I've been building on that. And then I decided I better suppress it, so then I ordered up a Lunar 9, and that one took 2.5 days from certification for the stamp to come back on it.
Now, are they mailing the stamps to you?
No, it's all done through ATF forms now. So like
Oh.
I do all my stuff through Silencer Shop because they've got my fingerprints. You give them a couple bucks, they go through all the paperwork, make sure everything's correct. They submit it for you, all that stuff, and then you just get online and DocuSign and certify it, and then you'll get an email from eForms that says your application status is in processing or however they word it. And then when it's approved or denied, you'll get an email. When you get the email that says your status on number da, 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 is approved, then there's an attachment you open, and there's the form with the stamp on it, and you just print it off.
Oh, see, that's part of the reason why I, because we're making all these changes around here, and having to mail me stamps right now would be a problem. Um, I didn't realize that they could do it electronically now.
Mm-hmm. It's all electronics now, eForms. You have to set up a little eForms account, and
That's
the
okay.
eForms website is totally worthless. But like I said, I go through a silencer company, and they've got my picture and prints. You go to the kiosk and they do the prints and everything. And like when
Yeah.
I did my Form 1, I did it through Silencer Shop, and they have everything on file. So I just filled in the blanks and punched in my credit card number, and a couple days later they said, "Hey, ready to certify." Okay. And
Yeah,
like 2 days later, here it is, email. There's your stamp.
I did one. I did my original. What was that thing? I guess it was a suppressor. I mean, I had to do it like, it was like this woman's like trying to roll my fingerprints at this gun store. I mean, it was just a fucking disaster. She was like, she was like this old barmaid in like a biker bar. She's like, "Come on here, honey, let me show you how to do it." And I'm like, "I'm not a real fucking fingerprint. Stop smudging my fingers." And she's like, "Fuck," and it was just like, just kind of, and she's literally filling out this shit in ink. And it's like, she makes one mistake and you're fucked for like a year and a half. And, then all of a sudden one day I get a thick envelope from the ATF, and I went down there, and yeah, I think they mailed it to me, and then I went and took it to her. And then some of the guys on the SWAT team were like, "Hey man, you should do that kiosk thing." And I'm like, "Where's that?" And so we found a place that has a kiosk. They were like this where they all were going. And I can't remember, and that was a lot less painful. And I did I got the app on the phone. I can't remember if I still think I got a tax stamp in the mail.
Yeah.
So when you get so let me ask you this. When you're all said and done and you come home with your NFA item and you've got all your paperwork, you have it. You've gone through it all. On none of your paperwork, there is not an actual sticky stamp on any of it. It's
Nope.
all
It's
photocopies and
it's all
really?
printed. Yep. You just it comes as an attachment. It's your basically your application with all the serial number, your name, all that crap on it. In the upper right hand corner is a pink stamp.
So when they print that stamp, does it have the serial number of the item like printed in that stamp?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's
So you don't.
the serial number of the stamp,
Yeah.
and then you just run
Wow.
it off on your printer. So as soon as I get it, the first thing I do is save it to the files on my computer, and then I make about 10 copies.
Well, yeah, I make copies, but like I just never realized that
Yeah,
you're
there's not
getting.
an actual lick stamp anymore.
Damn, I had no idea. I feel really old. Like I remember, like I actually somebody had told me they're like, because you hear different things, and it's like, oh, if you lose this stamp, you can't, you know, they won't ever, you can't have your gun or whatever it is, and it's like, turns out, I talked to ATF, they're like, that's not true. They said that, you said if you ever for some reason, we recommend you make copies. But if for whatever some reason you lose your original documentation with the sticky stamp on it, she's told me, she says, we will never give you another sticky stamp. We'll give you a letter that says, whatever, this is legal and you own it and here's the
Hmm.
numbers. But she says, we will never replace that stamp. That is a one-time deal. And she was
Yeah.
pretty animate about it. Like that stamp, that sticky stamp was a big goddamn deal to her. And
Hmm.
now they're not even, you don't even get the sticky stamp.
No, it's all on one. So basically, your front page has got all your identifying info, the serial number of the gun or the can, stamps in the upper right hand corner. It's just part of the printed form. And then page 2 and page 3 is just like your picture and other ancillary information that you don't even need. I just make one copy of that, and then the page 1 is everything that you need. And I just make about 10 copies and put, stash one in the grip of my gun, and put a few in the safe and a couple in the box the can came in, and I've got a couple in gun cases I use, and one in every vehicle. So I mean, no matter what I do, it'd be pretty hard for me to drive off and not have my paperwork.
Yeah, we do the same thing. I keep originals locked in, the actual hard armory,
Hmm.
their real armory. And then in like file cabinets with, some of the other stuff. And then there's photocopies in glove boxes. There's a book of documents in my range bag, and that has any kind of paperwork and even like targets and stuff in it. But there's copies there, and then the individual items, they'll be printed and stuffed in like pistol grips and shit.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I get it. I certainly get it. I'm just wow, I did not know.
Yeah.
I'd
So
even
when you
I did. Oh, go ahead.
when you get your notification emails that it's been approved with your file, you just print a copy off and you go up, like, I had to go to my FFL to get my can because they transferred it to him. You just take
Hmm.
them in. It's just like showing a permit to buy a handgun. You show him that, and he writes down the number, and you fill out a 4473, and off you go.
I remember a stamp collector telling me that actually getting for their stamp collections, getting NFA stamps was very difficult for them. It was a hard stamp for them to get.
Hmm.
And now I guess it's going to be harder.
Well, yeah, because there's just not an actual
No,
stamp.
not a stamp. And like I don't think a lot of people realize that like the whole stamp thing carries over from, there's a reason why, the NFA items use a stamp because then you can cancel it, or you can, and the post office uses a stamp and then cancels, like they take a rubber with ink on and they can, it's like it's been used.
Hmm.
So the whole stamp and canceling and marking of a stamp is a way to show, you know, transactions of a tax. It's an old fashioned way to do taxes. And the last really, and there's all these different areas that the government does still use stamps. They call things stamps. You have to get, for like, various, import things and export things and all this kind of thing, especially import things. Um,
Drugs.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know
Um,
if they still do that or not, but back in the 90s, the drug tax stamps were a big thing.
yeah, I don't,
So
I'd be real
whenever we did
curious to
a
see. Yeah.
whenever we did a drug bust, let's say, got 3 pounds of marijuana, you're supposed to buy a stamp for, I forget what the incremental amounts were. This shows that you had paid the government the proper tax for your illegal drugs. Well, of course, drug dealers didn't have their cocaine stamps or their marijuana stamps or their meth stamps. So back in the 90s, the big thing was, well, then they'd start seizing assets and have drug tax stamp sales.
Yep. You know what? I totally forgot about that. You're right. That's how yeah, it's an actual tax.
It
Like
was,
I
it was,
think
a,
yeah,
it was an
people use the
added on
phrase,
charge, but it was a civil thing.
yeah,
So there wasn't a way to really fight it in criminal court because it was a civil action. It was a tax issue. So That
I
was
mean,
that was just a freebie.
I always heard like I don't. I mean, I didn't. I didn't study this in law school or anything, but I'd always heard that that Jimmy Hoffa, or not Jimmy Hoffa, Al Capone went to jail on taxes. Right? Is that actually true?
Yep, tax evasion. Yep.
Yeah. And so, and I knew a guy. I knew a couple people that worked at the. They were. It was. I think it was called TIGDA, the Treasury Inspector General's office. And so they were the people that the IRS would like raid you with. Like they had guns and paperwork and stuff. And like if they're showing up at your shit, you're way beyond getting letters. Like so
Yeah.
like they would even come with these sticky note things. And like they could walk up to a building, they could stick a sticky note on it and be like, this is now federal property. Because it's like a no, it's not a stamp, but it's kind of it's very similar.
Mhm.
And and so like there was an incident where they showed up at a place to seize a bunch of shit. I think it was a car dealer. And so they went up and they put this thing on a car, and the person got in the car, and not only did they charge him with obstruction and whatever, they also charged him with trespassing on government property. Because once that fucking piece of paper hit that car, that sticky piece, boom, that was government property officially.
Yeah.
That sticker, that stamp, and I call it as a stamp stuck to it. It was bigger than the stamp, but it was like a stamp. And it was
Yeah.
like, yeah, dude, stamps are like in my mind, because I'm old, stamps are like a big deal. And I'm just wow, I can't believe that now they're just all printed off the you can get machine guns and they don't even get a hard stamp anymore. There'll probably come a day when actually having a true sticky stamp will become a collectible item
Hmm.
in the gun community. Like 30 years from now, was all these items transfer and change hands. Oh yeah, here's Kraken's old SBR from the internet days before we all used holograms, and he's got a sticky stamp. It's got an original, you know. Well, wait a
Yeah.
minute. Are you allowed to? If okay, are you? I don't remember. So like, let's say you know you've got your 9 millimeter SBR, okay,
Hmm.
and let's just say for giggles you got it in 2023, and it has a sticky stamp on it.
Okay.
30 years from now, can that original sticky stamp NFA item stay with that gun as it's handed off to different owners as like a provenance thing? Can new people have that stamp? I guess they can, because I know that the stamp collectors said that they collect NFA stamps. Like the government doesn't take that stamp back, right?
I don't know on that on the new ones. Basically, there's base if you're going to surrender it and say I don't want to SBR it anymore, I'm going to put a
Yeah.
16-inch barrel on it.
Don't you
Uh,
have to give them the paperwork then?
no, there's a form you send in, and because it's all electronic, I assume that then if I turned around and went out with an SBR that I had said I had turned in the paperwork to electronically for it not to be SBR'd anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I believe there's a way they can run the serial number of probably of the weapon, and it would come back either as an SBR or not. So if I've got a 10-inch barrel, there's no SBR coming back when they run it, then I'm probably in deep doo doo.
Yeah, because it's on the registry.
Yeah. So
And actually, I
basically,
think that if I remember,
you're
the
striking
government
it
doesn't
from the
even.
registry. So then I would assume you can keep a copy of it if you want, but that if you tried to use it, that would be, something fraudulently that
Yeah, I was trying to. I can't remember. I was talking.
posterity purposes, you could probably keep it.
I was talking to an NF to an ATF agent, and they were referring. I could have sworn they were referring to the registry, but they didn't call it the registry.
Yeah.
They called it something else, and I'm trying to remember what it was. But okay, so like here's the other thing. Like let's say, okay, I've got, you know, an SBR, like I've got the the Gemtech Integra, so it's permanently because it's got a suppressor permanently attached to it, to
Hmm.
make it length and all that kind of shit. And you're in Nebraska, and you're like, I'll sell it to you. So then I take it to a class 3 dealer who's going to, I think, probably, what is it, form 4 it to you or to your dealer, and then that dealer transfers it to you on a form 1. I can't
No,
remember how
it'd
all that
be
works.
it's form three to go to a dealer.
Form 3, okay.
Yep. So like when I bought my latest one, because my first one it was actually on the dealer's shelf. So this one I had to wait about a week for them to get the form three approved, which that only took like a day or two. They were just behind a week on shipping. So it takes a form three to go to a transferring dealer, and then I take my form four to that dealer.
Okay. Yeah, because I see dealers list stuff and they'll say I have it in Virginia on a Form 3 or Form 4. But here's the thing. So like I take my Integra to the local NFA dealer
Hmm.
to send it to you. Is that guy going to be like, "Hey dude, I need the original sticky stamp with this."
Are you selling it to me or just sending it to
Sell
me
it? Yeah, if
to?
I would sell it to you, yeah. Well, I mean,
Then it would have
what?
to, the way I understand it, it would be a form three to go from your guy to my guy.
No, but would the NFA dealer require, like, well, here's a photocopy of the stamp, a photocopy of the document. Like, well, here's a photocopy in the pistol grip. Would the NFA dealer from my end that's gonna ship it to your dealer, would he be like, hey, photocopy's cool, bro, but I need the original? I don't know how that works. I've
Well,
never
that's
sold
just
an
it. On
NFA
like
item.
on mine, it's there is no original. How do you tell one photocopy from another?
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Like, there are no stamps anymore.
So I think in the next, I give it 5 years tops, because this is one question I asked my attorney. I said, so if I happen to forget my paper copy of my stamp and DNR catches me out deer hunting and says, hey, cool can, you got your paperwork for it? Yeah, it's right here. Shit, it's in the other truck. Can I show them? I've got it downloaded on my phone. Can I show them that? And they said, as of right now, that is not legal. You actually have to have the physical paper with you, if for it to be legal. I
Well,
foresee in the next few years that, just like with hunting and fishing licenses, digital copies are fine, because if you've got photo ID on you, you show them the digital copy on your phone with serial number on it. They can run the serial number. Yep, it comes back to Kraken.
well, there used to be a rumor, like, 'cause they'd say this, like, if you ever lose this, they're never gonna, you know, you're never gonna, they're never gonna replace it. And the ATF agent's like, we're gonna give you a fucking letter.
Yeah.
And then it was, and I think there was, if for some reason you have your NFA item and you don't have the paperwork, by accident, sometimes things happen.
Yeah.
It would be incumbent on a local law enforcement officer, unless you're interfacing with a federal officer, to, they would just, you'd be like, here's the end, is this an NFA item? You just show them a copy or of an electronic copy on your phone, and they'd be like, that's fine, but I think the ATF told me, they're like, even if you don't have your tax stamp, you paid your taxes, you're allowed to have that gun. You're allowed to have that item. It may get taken from you for people to determine the status, but I was told by an ATF agent,
You're
you're going to
saying
get it.
before it's approved?
No, no, no. I'm saying no, no. I'm saying you own an NFA item and you're out with it, and for some reason you forgot your fucking paperwork.
Okay, yeah.
And, some local cop is like, the fuck? And they take your shit. The ATF told me, they're like, you'll get that back.
Yeah.
You paid the tax. One thing you can't do, you can't tax people twice unless it's, luxury tax. on a car, but tax on tax. But so it's like this idea like if you don't have this paperwork, you're going to lose this gun forever. You're going to lose this item forever. Or they're never going to replace it, or you're never going to be able to prove that you own this. The ATF told me they're like, no. The ATF is like, our job is to be able to rectify what we call the registry. They have a name for it. Like
Yeah,
their goal, they told me it was our goal is to make sure that the list of shit that they've got on file is accurate. That, Jim Bob owns XYZ and then Jim Bob owns XYZ, that there's no discrepancies on the list versus what's real. And, your shit's on that list, you'll get, yep, he paid the tax, give him his shit back.
yeah. I
So,
think you'd probably get your stuff back, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's some type of penalty for out turkey trotting around without your paperwork, some type of a fine or something.
that would be a state fine. That
Yeah,
would be a state fine. And various states do. Like Ohio had a rule. I remember Ohio had a rule that any magazine that held more than 40 rounds was considered a machine gun. Like just one of those weird coinky
yeah,
dink things that they were doing. And it's like, well, suddenly, you have a 50 round drum magazine. Suddenly you'd be charged with having, an unregistered machine gun and no NFA stamp.
yeah,
And it's like, oh shit, it's like, but that's a state thing. That's not an ATF thing.
yeah.
So, all right. Well, we've been going for a while, and this is kind of a test. How does my audio sound to you?
That sounds really good.
Does it sound echoey? I feel like it's echoing in this room a little bit. I may need to get a new
That's
microphone.
that's just probably your room because it's not echoing here.
Okay. Well, hopefully, more shit I'm going to have to buy,
Yeah.
for all this construction. Now I got to buy new microphones. So,
Now this is
anything else?
actually the clearest you've sounded.
Well, for the upspeed I'm getting, like I told you, we could broadcast two simultaneous 8K Korean snuff videos. We could upload them. Oh, was that what I said before? Dude, I
Yeah.
know. Yeah, that's what I said before I hit
Which is
record.
fun. Which is even funnier because I told you my ex-wife was Korean.
That's why I said it.
Now I hope she doesn't hear this podcast because yeah,
What was it you said at the NSA? It's a joke. Yeah, it's a joke.
yeah.
Uh,
For those of
oh,
you at the NSA listening in, that's only a joke. We're not
oh,
serious.
that reminds me because that was started this before we started recording. Then we'll go ahead. We'll end it. There's a guy out there who's going around saying that that the FBI and the NSA are have got um, software that's like a viruses crawling around the internet that are key loggers, and they're logging everybody's passwords off their keystrokes,
Hmm.
and they've mandated that all of the malware antivirus software companies cannot detect and flag the software. I heard that just a couple of days ago, and this guy's screaming about it. And it's like, I hate to say this. You know, I'm not a big conspiracy theorist, but with how crazy everything has gotten with the government and how much they lie about everything, I think, there might be a greater than 0% chance that that fluoride is turning the frogs gay. Like I just don't know anymore. Like what was that guy's name who the 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 conspiracy guy, Infowars guy? He says fluoride's turning the
Oh,
frogs gay.
yeah, I know. I can picture the
Alex
guy playing
Jones.
his Alex Jones. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, he came out and said that they're selling baby parts, and it's like, you're out of your fucking mind. That turned out to be true. I mean, it's just like, Anthony Fauci and all these people, like all this stuff. They come out like all these intelligent people come out like, oh, the Hunter Biden laptop is Russia, and it's just like, I mean, you know, I bet you they're doing all kinds of crazy shit. that's
Well, how long
in the
has
U.S.
programs like Carnivore and Echelon? I mean, that's what, 70s technology?
Oh, this guy, no, this
You
guy,
know,
he was
so
named
I'm,
the programs that were doing the key logging, he named the
oh
programs.
yeah. Well, what I'm
And
getting
it was
at is,
like,
I mean,
oh
look what they
shit.
could do clear back in the 70s that we had no clue. So I have no doubt in 2024 that if the government wants to find little old me and find out anything it wants to about little old me, it is child's play.
Yeah, I
So,
mean,
so that
look,
doesn't surprise. There's
it's,
probably no encryption out there that I can get hold of that some 15-year-old gamer that contracts out for NSA can't figure out how to crack if they want to bad enough.
dude, you were in the Navy. Okay. There's nothing that can't be found out about you by finding a girl that works at Soy Cowboy and giving her $100 and ratting your ass out. That's all I'm saying.
Actually, it
So,
was Bar, Kentucky in Palma, Spain. Get it right.
okay, this wraps up episode 341 of the John 1911 podcast. If the audio is screwed up, I apologize. I'll work on the microphones. We're trying to get back up to speed around here, but you will be hearing the podcast more frequently going forward. If you want to hear any more stories or pictures and links of anything we discuss, please go to the website at john1911.com. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun and going to the Bar, Kentucky in Palma, Spain. Everybody.
After Texas Jacks.
After Texas Jacks. Everybody, have a good night.
Have a good night.